Warning, this fragments of silicon may contain small pieces.
All right, welcome to another installment of Fragments of Silicon. I'm your host, Adam. Joining me as always, the regular crew. Let's get to the news. Let's see. Twilight, why don't you start us off this week?
Not well. This past week hasn't been too eventful. Me and my mother and I did some Christmas shopping on Saturday. Went to the next town over. We were, of course, as cautious as possible, and yeah, mm, didn't go to a whole lot of places. It was all right. We did find a few things. I don't have a whole lot of people to buy for anymore. So yeah, everything still goes well though. Let's see here. The at this point, the holiday rush hasn't been all that busy quite yet, though I expect it to be so. Either after this Friday or next Saturday. I mean, no, not Saturday. I mean next week. Um, yeah. Uh, yeah, there really isn't all that much more to speak on. It's being cold, though it's going to be warming up after today, and they'll probably uh, drop back, drop back down, as Kentucky weather usually likes to do. And well, for gaming, I've been playing more on the Switch, and I've been playing the game for this week, and that's about it.
All right. Betty?
Oh, you cut out for a second.
Mm-hmm.
As far as my week, not a whole lot of eventfuls happened for me. Though my mom did hear back from the hand surgeon about her hand, and they want her to do some physical therapy before they actually work on, see about doing surgery on it. Cause I think she tore a couple things in there.
Mm.
So hopefully therapy helps. And yeah, I guess one of those will play it by ear. And then once she gets her therapy schedule stuff sorted out, I'm going to see about going back to the doctor about my back problems. Because they still have not helped, or subsided. That's going to be fun. And then as far as gaming and stuff goes, Final Fantasy 14's 4.3 update finally dropped, so hooray for new content. So yeah, I streamed the main story and the normal mode raids, so that was fun. Hopefully we can get started with doing Savage content this week, but really depends on how many, how people feel or how people get, the normal mode stuff done.
Mm.
And yeah, aside from that, it's been really slow.
Okay. Gallix, your turn.
Pretty low key here. It's been getting colder, which has been making continuing to try to play Pokemon Go a little bit taxing. I haven't gone for as many walks as I'd like, although there are still some places I can just go with a car and spin a few things, and then go. So that's.
Be one of those people.
I mean, it's not ideal, but it's better than freezing my hands off.
Mm-hmm.
Especially
Back-
since I don't have any phone gloves.
Hmm.
You know, ones that have
back in. Yeah.
touch.
I mean, how cold is it up there?
Just below freezing.
Hmm.
It's like
Like 30 degrees.
that's a bit warmer than I expected, honestly.
I mean, it was a
expecting, like,
little
the
bit cold
20s.
earlier this week. It's supposed to be a little bit warmer later this week. We'll see.
Right.
We've had just a little bit of snow so far. Like just a coating, but it hasn't melted.
Oh boy.
Ooh, that's not good.
It's not that bad. A little bit of snow isn't a problem. A lot of snow can be a problem. And yeah, and I've have continued playing Pokemon with some of my friends who either just got the DLC or just started or whatever. So have been picking that up. So I haven't done as much of. I've only done like another level or two in Age of Calamity, unfortunately, because of that. That's about where I am.
All right. Anything else?
I don't think so.
All right. That
I
means
mentioned,
it's my.
I mentioned that I have an actual appointment to get a regular doctor, right?
I
It's
believe.
I think so.
Yeah.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
It hasn't happened yet. It's in a couple weeks, but
right.
Yay, doctors.
I guess it's my turn.
Yep.
The big news is if you paid attention to our Sunday reviews, you might have noticed that we did one review and then we took a break for 24 hours because I had to go to the hospital. Your finger turning purple will do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Especially
they didn't have to,
after
like,
a cut.
remove that or something, right?
No, they didn't have to. No, my finger is still where it is.
For
Like,
now.
I talked to two doctors about it. Like the most that was discussed, and I asked about amputation. No, they said at most like I would have to go and consult a hand surgeon and see if I needed the nail bed to be removed.
That sounds painful.
Yeah, thankfully, no, that didn't need to happen, or at least not yet. The finger's been getting better. It's it still looks not good, let's say, but better than being swollen with fluid and pustules showing up.
Mm-hmm.
So they gave me antibiotics. The thing is, they were not exactly sure if these were going to be 100% effective, because while they were sure there's a bacterial infection here, they were not sure if there's a fungal infection as well. So, but so if it doesn't like completely clear up, I don't exactly know what to do. No, because antibiotics will not work on a fungal thing for obvious reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but outside of that, yeah, the finger is healing, thankfully. And we did manage to complete our review session on Monday. So if y'all missed out on the other reviews, they are there. It took a bit longer for things to coalesce. Medical emergencies will do that.
Trust me, I know all too well.
We know. I mean, we lost you for half a season once.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Anyway, so yeah, I think that'll about do it for my news for the week. So merrily we shall roll along to the interview portion of the broadcast. And joining us this week are Isabella Haro and Andrew Viveiros of Tired Turtle Games.
Hello.
Hello. Is Isabella here?
Yes, I
pretty
am.
sure she
Sorry, push to talk. Hard for me.
Oh, okay. Right. So, how are you both doing today?
Doing great. How about yourself, aside from possible fungal infection, I think?
Doing better than a couple of days ago. Let's just say.
Glad to hear it.
Anyway, right. So, how we like to get started is we like to get to know the people behind the games, behind the studio, and whatnot. And we do that by asking this specific question: what got you both interested in video games, both on a personal and a professional level?
Sure. I'll start. I'll take that one first. What got me interested in video games personally at the beginning, way back in the far off year of like 2005 or something. I was a wee lad, and my dad didn't know what to do with us and to make the kids happy. And he had somewhere in the basement his old Sega Genesis. And so he busted that bad boy out, and I played a whole lot of Batman Returns and Desert Strike, I believe was a helicopter game. Those are the only two games he had on it. Later, he got Mortal Kombat for me and my brother, and then eventually we got a Wii, and that was like when the ball really got rolling. But despite being born in the year 2000, the first video games I ever played were for the Sega Genesis.
Things can be weird like that. Like, you get a fair amount of people who say we're in the NES era who might have played the Atari 2600 first, just because there were so many of those still around, and so on and so forth. Like, it's not that unusual. Like,
For sure.
But anyway,
But I do think that if my dad had busted out an Atari instead of a Genesis, I probably would be much less of a gamer today. No offense to the 2600, but
potentially, who can say? And Isabella, what about you?
Yeah, so I'm not quite so much of a retro gamer as Andrew is here. I had a Nintendo DS like every other age appropriate child, back in like 2006. But I think my entry into professional video game making was a little bit more because of my fine arts background in like high school. So I decided, well, I can't get a fine arts degree because, you know, mom always wanted a doctor. So I'll settle for a game designer, um, and decided to pursue that in college just to say I could. And now here we are. So a little more practical.
Like bit of a twist on the whole college story, because usually when we talk to people in the video game industry who went to college, it was like, they went for programming or something along those lines, and they ended up in video games.
Yeah, well, I can't program. I can draw. So here we are.
Well, I mean, there are different fields, like, no doubt. And so, did both of you start out on the, let's say, indie scene here, or did you like work in, say, the AAA space before heading to Tired Turtle?
have I got a surprise for you? We are both currently college students, and this is our first video game we've ever made.
Oh man,
It's Digital Janitors.
Okay.
Well, that's not first like full, for sale commercial game. I've made little stuff, and we've dabbled. We're well aware of the arts and all that, but the first full game is this one. This is our sort of premiere, our debut.
Okay. I will say that is not common among our guests, but not the first time we've had people either fresh out of college or in college doing this. Like, and well, I suppose the question that beckons is, what's making you wanting to do a commercial project now while you're still in college?
So we go to Drexel University in Philadelphia. Well, at a certain level, the answer is always going to be money. But the more fun answer is we go to Drexel University here in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And at Drexel, there's this great program called the Entrepreneurial Game Studio. in which students, undergraduate or graduate, can come in, and or I think it's actually undergraduate, not no graduate students, but students can come in and form a team and then work on actual commercial games under the tutelage of some like really talented and sort of esteemed professors who like help you out and advise on the game and all that. And we've had some really cool games come out of the program, and we're I believe the newest team in the program. But that's why we went from student games that are always short and kind of funky and really artsy to something that's a little more commercial, a little more marketable, and all that.
Indeed. I mean, different focus vectors there usually. I mean, even like within academia, like once covered a game that was meant as a teaching tool, for example. And how many people are in this program, and how long does a program last?
I'd say there's probably about 50 members right now currently. The numbers change every year because we are college students, so once you graduate, you're kind of out. Um, but usually, as soon as you join, you're in for the remainder of your collegiate stay. Most people join sophomore, junior year,
Okay.
so they usually get like a 2-year period to try and get something out.
All right. And I suppose shifting a bit to the game itself, how long has Digital Janitors been in production?
A little over a year, and my Google Home just went off.
That was mine for a second.
I don't even know what I said. Whatever. A little over a year, and a few months under a year in terms of full production, because the game started as a class project that then our professor frankly was like, there's some real sort of some special sauce going on here. There's a spark here that we could really like fan that flame. So over a year ago, it was the class project, and then under a year ago, it was like, okay, we're going to make this an actual full game.
Oh, that is interesting. Did he specify what the special sauce was in this game that made him say, "Let's go commercial"?
It was sort of a combination of like the strong sort of gameplay loop of sorting files and all that on a sort of desktop computer. Well, the strong gameplay loop of sorting the files and the strong theming of it being on a desktop computer. It was like very simple to understand and engaging for the player, as well as pretty unique. And not to toot my own horn or our own horns, but like something that he hadn't really seen done in this way before, and he thought that was good enough to sort of build into something bigger and even better. And I happen to agree.
Yeah, our game's been described as pretty juicy since like day one. So I think that's what separated it from the others.
Interesting. And now you mentioned like there's 50 people in the program. How many people are assigned to digital janitors here?
Well, it's not like an assigned sort of thing. We form groups pretty organically. For us, it's 6
Okay.
of us total, and we just came together because we're friends in the same like year. But some people do get together for more practical reasons. But we just decided we want to make a game. So
And I hope that those ended up better than the group projects I worked on in college. uh, Believe me, I could rant for a long time about the uselessness of people on group projects.
Oh yeah, I think we all could.
Yes.
That's why when you get a
Anyway.
good one, you gotta stick with it. You gotta see it all the way through, all the way to Steam.
Right. And before we get more into where the project is in terms of development, I suppose we should go into what is the digital janitors? Who are the digital janitors? What are they cleaning up? And so on and so forth.
Sure. So Digital Janitors is a quote unquote desktop defense game in the style of like an old 90s PC, where you play as the IT manager for this big soda company called the Merger Corporation, and you have to their whole file system, their whole structure, the whole shebang is under attack by a group of mysterious hackers trying to destroy and steal all the company's data. And you are the only IT guy on staff. So what you're tasked with is going to every computer in the company, from the first floor to the CEO's suite, and clearing the hackers off of every computer. And you do this in game by sort of dragging files that are bad to the recycling bin and files that are good to the secure drive, and closing virus pop-ups that come up, and all that fun stuff. And the game is very kinetic, and you're sort of like very action oriented, and sort of a bit of a differentiation from the usual sort of false OS genre of games like Emily is Away and all that sort of thing. Sort of begins to cover it, I guess.
Yeah, I think I can see where the gameplay potential lies here, given how, just from the trailer footage, everything, how frenetic everything looks. It's very arcadey. Like, I suppose if this were something that came out in the 90s, this might have been something that would have been shareware or something. Not sure. But like, what was your frame of reference in terms of coming up with like all of the 90ness of everything?
I mean, we just look to history, I think. To be honest, from an artistic point of view, there's a lot to draw from. We're lucky that we picked the 90s and not, like, I don't know, the 1800s. It's all media existed, so it's easy to look back. Like, when I look at character fashion and stuff, I have to think of, like, gaudy, um like, look up red carpet 1992, and I have a plethora, to work from. So thankfully, yeah. And it's pretty bad.
Insert
you know I,
something about grunge.
yeah, so
92, we were still dealing with more neon than grunge, but it was coming in.
Yeah, fair.
But yeah, I'm just glad that it's the 90s and not the 80s, because personally, I'm kind of sick of seeing the 80s being referenced in media.
Yes, we're trying to get ahead of the Stranger Things kicks off the 80s buzz, right? We're trying to Digital Janitor is going to kick off the 90s buzz. This is the beginning of it, baby.
Sure. I'm like, yeah. And is this a pure, let's say, arcade experience, or is it one of those games where there's more going on beneath the surface? Is there a bigger tale going on behind the scenes, so to speak, at the IT level, or maybe at the higher corporate level in game?
As the person whose job title is tentatively narrative designer, I would say there's a little more going on in this than just sort of the arcade action.
Okay.
We sort of have the obvious sort of surface level story of like, stop the hackers, but the hackers are characters, and you get to know them through the sort of AOL Instant Messenger parallel in our game. You get to talk to the hackers through that system, and you get to talk to the employees through sort of an overworld system. I believe that's in the trailer as well a little bit. And you will begin to uncover the sort of mysteries of the Murder Corporation and of these hackers, and why they're doing what they're doing, and how the whole thing sort of ties together, as well as like the personalities of the very quirky hackers and the less quirky corporate workers as you progress from the first to the top floor.
Right. And in terms of hackers, are you just dealing with, say, black hat hackers, or are there white hats as well?
These are all black hat hackers that we're dealing with.
Not surprising. Like,
or at least that's what you think when the game begins. Oh,
Dun dun
breadcrumbs now.
dun.
Who knows what's going to happen?
Indeed, keep you on your toes. I'm like, and how long would you say this game is supposed to be? Like, is this something you would blaze in, say, 1 or 2 hours, maybe more of an 8-hour affair?
I think legally, if you want to put a game on Steam, you're at least shooting for over 2 hours to get past that refund limit. But I think the game will come in. Obviously it's not done yet, and we don't totally know. But given our sort of plans and the content we have built out right now and what we're looking at for the future, I think coming in like 3, maybe 4 for the main story, and then as much as you want in the sort of arcadier endless mode that we're working on, which is something I haven't mentioned yet. We do have a sort of arcade endless mode that you just play an infinite amount of digital janitors. So if you really like the gameplay and you don't really care for the words I've written, I won't be too offended. You can just go sort files to your heart's content.
So I'm guessing that's going to be available at the start.
Yeah, it'll be sort of like the 2 options on the main menu. You can go into the story or you can go into the endless mode. And we've workshopped some nice thematic names for this stuff, but we don't have anything nailed down just yet.
Sure. I'm like, any plans for like a time attack mode?
We could. I mean, it sort of comes up against how the levels are designed. Or how the sort of spawning folder system is designed. It's like not. There's an element of you could do it faster if you're really good, but the margins are probably going to be like 10 to 20 seconds maybe. So I don't know if it would be that engaging, but we can maybe retool some things to get a time attack mode going.
And this is how feature creep starts.
Yes, right. That's why I said possibly.
Yeah, I mean, and they don't have 3 years to develop a game or 5 years either. And yes, we have featured people on this program who have spent that long making one. Like, it comes up more often than you'd hope, actually.
Yeah, that's something they talk about a lot at EGS, at the Entrepreneurial Game Studio, is keeping things at scope or under scope and being willing to sort of call it before it's the perfect thing when it's the good enough thing, which, it's a part about learning how to release a game, which is what we're trying to do here, as well as make a good game.
Yeah, those are probably lessons. Because, like I said, we have spoken to people who have taken on a lot of ambition, and like we had one person who was doing everything in a let's say open world RPG, 3D RPG, and we were not surprised that took 5 years to make. Just to cite one example. So. Anyway, now speaking of the state of the game, exactly where in development is it right now?
I would say we have essentially the entire gameplay-wise, the entire framework built out. So we have like the sort of power-ups that you get in the game, the quote-unquote enemy types, which are like folder types, right? And we have the like dialogue systems and all that stuff. I'm still working on one way of delivering sort of like extraneous or like tertiary information to the player for like another narrative design feature. And then I'm working on like the full script. I have it like outlined and everything, but I don't have every word written. And then we're working on boss fights for the end of every level, or for the end of every sort of like level of the building, not every level. And we're working on just the vast amounts of art, which Isabella could probably talk about.
I mean, yeah, we have all sorts of floors because each one is thematically a little different. Not to go into spoilers or anything, but every single floor should look, unique and different. And then there's all the characters and all that sort of stuff. And just the fact that we've chosen to do, 2D hand drawn sprite work for, yeah, basically everything. That certainly takes time as well. So we got I think, a fair way to go.
Are you the only artist on the project?
No, we have one other artist as well, Robbie Patel. He's more of the environment focus, and I do more of the character work. But indie teams, we both just help out how we can.
Okay. So how much more of the game would you say you have to go before its scheduled spring launch?
I think I may have a more optimistic outlook than a lot of the team, but I do think that some people are overestimating how much we have left. I would put us at like 75.
Yeah, I would put us at 50. I think everybody on the team has a different answer to that question.
Right. But I mean, I think part of that is that most of the programming work left is like my stuff, like narrative stuff, which I'm in the middle of, and will get done, and boss fights, and then it's a lot of art and polish. Aside from those things, so like, and obviously these things all take time, and everything will take time. We can't be perfect, and as it's our first game, wouldn't be too surprised if I think on Steam it says March 2021 right now. Wouldn't be surprised if maybe that gets slipped up or back or whatever. Can't really predict it too well, but I think we're in a pretty good spot.
That's good to hear. Given there's a limited latitude in terms of development and release here in your unique situation. And in regards to the release of the game, are you shooting for an early access release before a proper 1.0 release?
No, I think part of what we're looking for is to like get the game under our belt. 'Cause the worst thing that happen would be to launch an early access and then have people start like graduating, and then it's like communication falls apart, and then the game's in early access forever. I'd rather get the game to a really good spot where maybe it could be bigger, it could be better, et cetera, but it's in a good spot. It's fun, playable, has a lot of the pieces we really wanted in it, and just call that a day. And then the possibility of like, hey, we want to do a little expansion, or we want to do like tweaks, or we want to add a little more to endless mode or something, or a time attack mode. Those sort of things we could maybe get into, but I think calling it 1.0 and shipping it is kind of our goal.
About what I expected, because the early access releases can be anywhere from 3 months to like 8 years, depending on the game. And maybe forever. There are some abandoned early access games out there, not gonna lie. Let's see. So in terms of computer builds, is this game Windows only, or are you also making builds for the Mac and Linux platforms?
We are shooting for Windows only. I don't have a Mac. I've never tried things on a Mac, and also I have no way of like testing on a Mac, especially right now because the college's facilities are all shut down. So that I couldn't go to a Mac lab or anything. So I think Windows is our number one priority and our number one target. And if 6 months after launch, one of us is like, let me try Mac, maybe it'll come to Mac. But that wouldn't even call that close to a promise. I would call that actually less than a promise, a negative promise, actually.
Right. And has any sort of pricing been sorted out yet, or is that still in flux?
TBD.
Okay. And let's see here. I think that's about it on my questions. I'll turn over to my colleagues here to see if they have any questions of their own to ask.
I just played the demo and I was like, oh god, the computer repair memories are coming back and I'm scared.
I think I'm good.
I'm good.
Okay. All right then. Well then, I would like to thank both of you for coming out here today and talking about your project. Interested to see how it turns out fully. And hopefully it is successful and it helps propel you both when you get out of college and whatever future endeavors may lie within.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
No problem. No problem. Right. So the game is Digital Janitors. It's currently in development on the Steam platform, being shot for a spring 2021 release date, let's say. Be sure to wishlist it on Steam to get more updates. And Petty, play us to the next segment.
Everybody's still there?
Did the music
I
go through?
am.
Yeah, the music went through.
Okay. It didn't really transpond over.
Yeah, it never does.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I know. It's just it's hard to time that when you can't hear it.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so welcome to the topic of discussion. This week we are talking about Flash games, specifically the death of Flash, and what
Yes.
that means for Flash games. Right. So this is a bit of a memento mori
Yeah.
because yeah, Flash is about to die, and you might remember Flash being the end all be all in terms of the web at any point in the early 2000s, even going all the way back to like the late 90s, like Flash was just gaining prominence in like 1999.
Yeah, Flash came out in '96, so it's had a good long life.
Yes. I'm like, and in general, Flash had a lot of uses. Maybe its chief accomplishment was in the realm of animation, because everything from Strong Bad, Homestar Runner, um, various webtoons like Gotham Girls, and it's going all the way back to the Critic webisodes, among to professional productions of various qualities. Everyone remembers the horror of Johnny Test, for example. But if you wanted to see what you could really, really do in Flash in terms of animation, Motor City Deluxe, criminally underrated series, probably the pinnacle of Flash animation that I can think of. Not surprisingly, it came out in like 2011. Which is when people really, really understood what Flash could do. And I also know Flash had a terrible reputation, both in animation circles, because Flash was a very accessible, cheap tool. The unity of its day in that particular sphere, so that led to a lot of cheap-looking cartoons.
But it has a couple of really specific limitations.
Right.
Specifically, you get a lot of the Flash aesthetic is that it's really good about having objects and moving them and rotating them and even scaling them, but it's not so great at squash and stretch or like actually changing things.
Right. I'm not disputing that. I'm just saying that the downsides of Flash were more amplified through lazy cartoons than anything else, and that's where the Unity parallel really comes in. It's like Unity is a tool set, that has its own limitations, yes, but it's like it's not shit because a lot of shit games come out on it. That's just because not just lazy developers, but opportunistic fucks who just flat out flip assets use this thing because it's
This is where the
it's,
asset flipper started before Unity.
yes. But this isn't about animation. This is about games. And Flash games have their place. I'll admit I'm not super versed in Flash games. When I think of Flash games, I think of the stuff I played off the Homestar Runner website, like Peasant Quest, Thy Dungeon Man, the 20xd6 game, Secret Collect. and whatever else they had there. But I know like the big Flash Nexus was Newground, and I remember like playing a couple of games off of it, but I never got into the Newground scene, like some people did. So, like, I know Alien Hominid from its console release, not its Newgrounds release. For example. So now it's over to Petty Fan to talk more in particular about Flash and Flash games.
Yeah, honestly, Flash games really hit their stride, at least for me, in that niche between smartphones coming out, really. Because, like, most games, you either bought them on your console or they were just little Flash games. Especially when you're, late elementary school, middle school, maybe early high school. And then, yeah, there's been a whole bunch of, notable ones, not just like Alien Hominid. There's I Want to Be the Guy. There is... It was my list.
Yeah, I Want to Be the Guy, the patron saint of Kaizo games.
Yeah. Where this whole crazy shit got started, almost.
Certainly in the West, I know Japan has its own Kaizo tradition.
Oh, one of the games we actually had reviewed, Fancy Pants Adventure, started on Newgrounds.
Right. And I remember that now. And like the original version of 6Vs was in Flash. Though that I believe got converted to, I want to say HTML5 or like C+. It got converted, a total conversion to another language, and that's why my save got wiped.
Yeah.
But, and you might ask, or if you're wondering why Flash is in the state it's in, this has just been a long, slow drain from a very pivotal event, and that was the introduction of the smartphone. Very famously, Steve Jobs was not a fan of Flash because, even in say 2007, Flash was a known security risk, and Jobs was not comfortable with that, and there's probably some other reasons behind his reasoning, but very famously, he said the iPhone would, and subsequently other iDevices would not support the platform. And this was a big problem because, well, smartphones were the future of web and tool development of this sort of deal.
And now Flash has been replaced in most places by HTML5, at least for web use.
Yeah, because that's something that was more, that was compliant with smartphones. Specifically the Apple stuff, because Android did support Flash. In fact, I remember like one particular phone was advertised that our phone supports Flash. They even trotted out Queen's Flash Gordon song for it.
Yeah, I remember that. Good
like,
times.
Yeah, it wasn't that big of a selling point, people. Like, I hate to tell you, but yeah, it's like, in terms of animation, Flash has been supplanted mostly by Toon Boom, if I'm recalling correctly. I'm sure Matt could talk more about that kind of thing since he actually deals with that stuff. But yeah, in terms of web games, in terms of web development, Flash is so very unneeded. if it's not HTML5, it's Unity. I don't think Unreal is really there for web development yet.
Right.
The problem with Unreal is that it's very, very focused on the high end. It's very focused on 3D graphics. To the point where, I guess you could do 2D graphics in Unreal, but I don't know of anyone who's crazy enough to try that. I mean, granted, when Unity started out, it was called Unity 3D.
Mm-hmm.
It was a very 3D optimized engine, but because it was so cheap and accessible, so many indie devs grabbed onto it to make 2D games. And ironically enough, I'd say Unity's 2D focus is much more strong than their 3D focus, if only by proxy.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't think pound for pound Unity can compete with Unreal. But that's not to say that Unity doesn't have its own space in that particular field. But yeah, there is no place for Flash really in the last 5, maybe 7 years.
Yeah, something like that.
It's just Flash was so everywhere. It's taken a long time to replace all that. That is, if that stuff is being replaced, and that gets to a few weeks from now.
Yes.
Because on what is
December 31st at midnight.
Right. So at the start of the new year, or close enough, let's say, Flash is going to be turned off, and anything that was made in it is going into the digital ether.
Mm-hmm.
So that's touching on the preservation societies to mobilize their asses and just start saving some of that stuff that hasn't been converted yet.
Yes, and so far places like Newgrounds have started, they make their own player. So if something's in Flash and your browser's blocking it, at least right now, you can just run it on the Newgrounds player. And from the games I've played, it works pretty good. It's not perfect, but I imagine, more bug reports they get, more tweaks they'll do, and hopefully it can be one-to-one.
Mm-hmm.
And there is
good that at least one of the very significant repositories of Flash stuff is working significantly on, preservation.
And then the other big project that's going on there is a Flash emulator that can work as a browser plugin called Ruffle. Ruffle is made on the Rust programming language, if anybody knows about that. And it's basically a Flash player without all the security vulnerabilities, and it can even run on iOS and Android. So that's going to be interesting to see how it, blossoms, because I haven't tried anything with Ruffle yet. So that's one of those things I'm going to try and work on at some point. But yeah, all in all, it kind of sucks that Flash is going away just because it was a big part of my childhood. But then again, me being in IT, no, that's a very big security hole that's about 30 feet wide. So yeah, it's one of those, you hate to see it go, but you know why it has to go.
Yeah. I guess I just never was that attached to Flash, so I'm not that sad to see it go.
Yeah, I think it was a major thing in people in my age range.
Yeah, I'm not that attached to Flash either. I mean, I've had some fun with some of the games I've played on it in my teens, but I'm not gonna miss it too much, honestly.
Like I said, I think a lot of Flash stuff is nostalgic. Just to give you an example of how ubiquitous this thing was, say 15 years ago, fucking YouTube was a Flash player.
Mm-hmm.
The really shitty days of YouTube. I know YouTube is shit now, but it's shit for different reasons than it was, say, 15 or even 10 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
I was shit.
Yeah.
YouTube was just awful in terms of visual fidelity in the aughts.
And that's not even going into it fucking breaking half the time.
Yeah.
Indeed.
I'm so glad we moved away from that.
Yeah. So yeah, hopefully the Flash stuff gets preserved.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess we'll maybe have an update on that. I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah, it's one of those we need to wait and see till the switch is turned off, really, to see the effects.
Right.
Because I know right now there are sometimes when you update, Flash is trying to tell you, hey, uninstall me. Though I keep denying it because I want to hold on a little bit longer. But yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I think that'll about do it for this installment of Fragments of Silicon. Coming up on the week ahead. So on Friday, we will be having our final Friday show of the season. And we will be having George Kukiro of Tiny Build and Max Lurio of Laughing Machines, as we'll be speaking about their upcoming game Undungeon. I articulated this a bit during the Sunday reviews, but Undungeon, while it's a game in development, they put out this thing called a prologue, which I guess is a bit meatier than a like typical demo. Like it's going to be like a full chapter from what I found. Like prologues are becoming more prolific for various reasons. I'm not exactly sure everything behind it. But maybe that's something we can ask on Friday. And coming up on the Sunday reviews, we'll be having our last reviews of the season. Coming up, we'll be having reviews on Sam and Max Save the World Remastered, Chicken Police, Paint It Red, Cube Raiders, and Bullet Beat for the Nintendo Switch. And also, we do have a new episode of Last News Disc on the Left planned. So be sure to join us over there on the YouTube in about a bit over a half an hour, 45 minutes. I know we can start late on there, but we've been having some technology problems lately on the YouTube end of things. But until then, I shall wish you good gaming.